Hey, Filmpreneurs, we are now on episode 4 of the Filmpreneur podcast and course that is inspiring and empowering filmmakers to create massive positive social change in the world through creating sustainable and profitable businesses. So welcome back. We've gone through a lot of my story so far. And to be honest with you, it's kind of fun for me to be able to recount these memories. I never really have had the opportunity to do that. And at the beginning, as I was designing this, I was wondering, is it going to be annoying or frustrating for you to listen to my story, or is it going to sound egotistical, or what's the point? But I really challenged myself on that because we are in the business of storytelling, aren't we? We're filmmakers, sure, but we are at the core storytellers. We use stories to help create some sort of a movement. That's what we do as filmmakers, right? So the story that I know the very best is my own. And that's the same with you as well. The story that you know how to tell the best is your very own. And as an entrepreneur as well, it's critical to know how to tell your own story. So think about that as well as you are selling and pitching your company, your videos, your films. How do you show up in the world by telling your own story? Not telling a story in a way that's like, hey, look at me, but always telling your story in a way that's going to impact others in a positive way. Critical. So as we go through every module and every episode here, through the infrastructure of my personal and corporate story, if you will, note that there's nuggets of lessons and learnings through every little part of my story. I could have used any story. It's going to follow the same arc, from inspiration to startup to thriving in the marketplace to making positive impact in the world to building a team, building an economy, and legit being relevant on a global scale. So this episode, I'm going to continue talking about the startup years. I already talked about my pre-startup years where I was really finding myself in the industry, finding myself in the art of film, finding myself as an adventurer, living in the Caribbean, living on cruise ships, shooting a ton of music festivals and music videos all over North America. And like I say, just finding my purpose, finding out where do I fit in the filmmaking landscape, but also where do I fit in my community as an entrepreneur? Where do I fit as a business owner? These are all elements at the beginning phases of being a filmpreneur that you're going to explore, is where's your place? And it's really important to know your place and be confident in your place, especially when others feel like they're living in a competitive market. And what I mean by that is so many entrepreneurs, we all have competition. That is true. Everybody's got competition, and competition's good. But if you are fearful of competition and not confident about where you sit and stand in your place, in your community, in the market, then you're going to have a hard time, because what you're always going to be doing is paying attention to your competition and trying to outdo them instead of paying attention to the goal, which is creating value for your customers, creating value for your employees, creating value for your community. If you continue to create value with everything that you do in growing your business and telling your stories and making your films, you will succeed in your sphere of influence. And that is what is critical here as well. To always think, yes, of course we have competition, but have the no competition mindset in the fact that what you do is unique, your business is unique, your style is unique. Nobody can touch you. And if you walk that way with a giving spirit, trust me, it works. So going back in the early days of my startup story, I didn't have that confidence. I was really all over the place trying to find our place in the world, but it was a real important exercise to go through. So this part of the story it's a real interesting milestone, actually, is the second film company that I had. It was called HIT Media. HIT stood for Hemmings, Ingersoll, and Tidby. You already met Andrew Tidby in previous episodes, and my other friend Glenn was a partner in HIT Media. Now, how did HIT Media come to pass? Well, as you know, Andrew Tidby and I were best friends for many years, went to film school, etc. When I finally committed to coming back and starting independent medium productions and making a company on my own, Tidby started helping me with my films, and I started helping him with his films. We weren't business partners by any means, but we hung out all the time together, and we made films together. It was fantastic. And I remember driving home from Halifax once. It was about a 5-hour drive. We drove past a field outside of a place called Sackville, New Brunswick, actually a little town called Memram Cook. And we saw all these motorhomes on a field. And we're like, what is that? Is it like an RV show? What's going on here? And just out of curiosity, because really we had plenty of time on our hands, I guess, we said, let's go check it out. So we go in, ends up being a bluegrass festival. And for me, I've been playing banjo for years. And, I like bluegrass. I'm not a big country fan. I like the old stuff, but like when it comes to that Scruggs style picking style with the banjo and the mandolin and the stand-up bass, there's just nothing like it. And the harmonies, big bluegrass fan for sure. But I had never been to a bluegrass music festival before. Remember, I've been to a million different rock and roll and jam band music festivals and folk festivals because I filmed a lot of them, but never to a specific bluegrass festival. We pull in, we happen to have our cameras. And we talked to the people at the gates and said, hey, we're filmmakers. Can we get passes in and we'll get some shots for you? And they're like, yeah, of course, no problem. Come on in. So we got free passes. And this is, remember, like a decision on the spot. And we got in, we realized there's so much great music going on. We don't have great sound packages on our cameras because I had my GL1 and Andrew had his Sony PD150. We had little shotgun mics, but wouldn't it be great if we had a proper boom mic and lavs? And why don't we make something legit out of this? Let's make a little bluegrass documentary. So we knew a friend who had a really robust audio kit. We knew him from the feature film industry. And he was the eye in HIT. Anyway, we called him up and said, hey, do you want to come down and come check out this bluegrass festival? Maybe we can make a film together. So he did. And we captured this magical 3 days of bluegrass. And I remember it took, I don't know, a couple months to edit it together. And it was called East Coast Breakdown. It was all about this amazing convergence of Acadian, Cajun, if you will, music, combination with a little bit of country and bluegrass, and it really had a unique sound. So we made a film called East Coast Breakdown, and the bluegrassers loved it. And for a period of time, I was traveling all over the place to different bluegrass events, screening the documentary, selling the documentary, and all this. But the experience was so good that my two friends, Glenn and Andrew, and I said, why don't we make a business together? We had such a great experience making the East Coast Breakdown film together. Why don't we make a business together? So we got a lawyer and we created a 3-part equal partnership in our corporation called Hit Media. And we had a really good run. Like we had a beautiful office, and I remember we would just work so hard during the week, and we'd always have these super fun parties on the weekends at our office because it was right uptown. And yes, you're probably painting a picture that I had a little bit of a party lifestyle when I was younger. I did. Not anymore, but I did. But there was something special about working really hard and then letting loose at the end of the week as well. But we became part of a couple different cultures in our city. We became an important part of our business culture because Hit Media, we were producing good corporate videos for our local business community here. But also, we were really tied in with the arts because we were so heavily supporting different musicians and making videos and films and also nonprofits. So we became really an important part of our business community in my town of St. John. And also, because of all of our events that we put on, whether it's parties or concerts or anything like this, we also had a really good relationship just with the citizens of the city. We found our place, we really did. And we started to get bigger and bigger as far as the values of projects that we were producing. And we started to get our stride. Unfortunately, one of the things that none of us were trained at was finances. And, one of the partners, it was not me, their role was to take care of it, and I wouldn't have done any better, I'm sure, but it's a lot of work to keep your books up to speed. It just is. Every time a receipt comes in, to log it into QuickBooks, and there's a lot to keeping the books tight and straight. And we got away with it for about 3 years, and I remember getting audited by CRA, and it was, for them, it was a joke, but for me it was so painful. because our books were an absolute mess, and it was all of our fault. All three of us were equal partners. Resentment started to happen, in fact, and there was a breakdown of a friendship that happened over a period of time as a result of us just not having our business senses together, because we didn't have business training. We're filmmakers, we're artists, even entrepreneurs, but the lesson learned here is so important about surrounding yourself with the professional services that you need to create a successful business. Great lawyers, great accountants, great coaches, HR professionals, all that stuff that's kind of like might sound boring, or is that really necessary? I'm a small business. They are absolutely critical. And what had happened as a result of a lot of frustrating trying to keep the business tight and keep everything, legit, if you will, is we fell apart and the company collapsed. And it took me probably 5 years. It took all of us, that amount of time to pay off the sins of that past, to kind of clear that up and get it behind us. And I call that my business school. That was, going back to that fail discussion we had earlier. We had a really good attempt at making a business that could work. Our hearts were in the right places. We had great intentions. We were making the impacts and truly making the splash in our market that any business would love to enjoy. On the outside, we looked like a thriving business. On the inside, we were just dysfunctional and falling apart. And when I look back at my film school days, if I could change one thing, is I would have wanted to take business courses, basic budgeting, basic bookkeeping, like these business things that may not sound interesting to a filmmaker. It's the make or break as you build a business. So as you are starting to create your business, I want you to start listing out who are the people you're going to surround yourself that are really good at the things you're not. And it's okay to not be good at keeping your books. It's completely okay. Most of us are not good at it. And oftentimes there are very affordable solutions for bookkeepers to come in and do your books once a month. Not a big deal. For us, it resulted in essentially not a bankruptcy of a company, but you might as well call it that, because it took years for us to pay it off. Strained friendships, and again, another sense of failure. So that was a three-year run, tough lesson to learn, but there were so many good things that came out of it. Again, growing a strong foundation of business acumen, learning from mistakes, and learning also from really cool adventures and experiences that we had that actually worked. The point of all this is you're going to have failures. You're going to fail. It's going to happen. But if you know that as a filmpreneur going into it, you can almost celebrate it when it happens, because you know you're going to get up, you're going to clean it up, you're not going to make that mistake again. Another little bit of a learning that I had was when you go into business partnership with friends, it happens. It might be you right now. You might have a best friend that you want to create your business with. It's all good. Friends and family can work very well together. However, there will be a time when the business is going to shut down, or there's going to be a very difficult conversation to be had, and your relationship will be altered if you do not lay down the foundation at the very beginning of how you're going to exit. They call those exit agreements. So when you're getting your incorporation papers done by your lawyer, if you're going into a partnership, make sure there's a divorce discussion. It's like right when everything's good and everybody's happy, you say, hey, there's a good chance we are going to get divorced eventually. Let's decide how that's going to work now before we even start. That one discussion on paper is probably one of the most important things in saving relationships moving forward. Because if you look at your business as a project with a beginning and an end date, it might go past the end date, and that's fine. But if you look at it as a project, you know it's going to end, and you just have to figure out when it ends, how do we get out? And how do we get out so we're all either enjoying the profits that comes out, or we're all being responsible for the debts? These are really important and difficult discussions to have. Another really interesting consideration when you're looking at having a partnership is the division of equity, like who owns the company. Is it equal partnership? If it is, that's good, that's fine, but nobody's in control unless you make a decision on paper at the beginning saying, yes, we're 50-50, or 30-30, 33-33. But this is, at the end of the day, if there's a conflict, this is how we're going to resolve it. And your lawyer will be able to help you walk through that. It's not a difficult process, but it can be very dangerous for relationships if it's 50-50. I would always suggest, if you really want to keep it as close to equal as possible, making it a 49-51 would make more sense. And how do you determine that? Well, the person who has majority is ultimately the most responsible. So it comes with liabilities as well, being the majority shareholder of a company. But perhaps that person brings a little extra money in at the beginning or brings gear into it. Whatever the arrangement is, it has to be dealt with up front and say, here's, maybe it's a 70-30 split, but there's a reason why one party has a larger share and the other has a lesser share. You got to deal with that at the beginning. And the closer to equal partnership you have, the more difficult it is to make decisions in most cases. Because at the end of the day, most of us have our own agenda in mind first. We are very giving, caring, empathetic species, humans. But at the end of the day, you want to save your own bacon when things get really bad, right? And things will go bad unless you work at being really strong. And the best way to become really strong with partners is by setting it up at the very beginning. If you need any more discussion on this, I'm going to have some resources about who to talk to in the legal field and also in entertainment law, but any business lawyer can help you with these things. And in fact, there's lots of templates as well that I'm happy to share with. So to review, hit media was another phase in my growth curve. I see it as an educational period, again, going back to film school, but also going back to getting my MBA. That company, the rise and fall of that company was my MBA, and I don't regret a minute of it because the lessons that I learned from that particular experience helped me become a strong, resilient leader today for this company, Hemmings House. And it's going to be the same for you. Again, the takeaway from this is expect very difficult experiences, expect frustrations, expect failures, but also go in knowing full well that if you use those as foundations for lifetime learning, and also recognize that the positive and negative ripples that come from those experiences can and will follow you for many years ahead, then you can take a little bit more control about how you react to these situations. But with the failure and the demise of that particular company, again, like anything, one thing dies, another thing grows. Well, the thing that grew out of this is after Hit Media separated, a big budget TV series landed on our laps, which was really interesting timing. I'm talking within the week of us shutting Hit Media down, we ended up having a CTV Travel Discovery Channel TV show, which would be our very first TV series. And when you hear what the show was, it's going to blow your mind. Thinking about what your dream first project is, this particular one's hilarious, but I'll just leave it to you with this. We traveled all around the world, and I was able to sip the finest, most expensive whiskey in the world in one of the episodes. So stick around to next week, where we will go into how we got our first TV series. Again, we're in limbo. We don't have Hit Media anymore. Tibby and I end up being able to produce a show that he pitched successfully, and where that ended up taking us again in the ladder of learning in developing my particular company. And I hope there's going to be a ton of learning and a ton of fun for you as we go through that particular process.